Well, hello, everyone. We're so glad that you're here. I'm John McKenzie. I pastor this church, and I welcome you on behalf of all of our people and all of our campuses. We're just so glad that you're here. And what I would really like to say up front is the people behind me and the people beside me are the real reason why this thing is happening tonight. And I just want to say to you how grateful I am to all of them. They are the heroes of life. They are the ones day in, day out, living this with people, helping people. And if you don't get anything else out of this panel discussion and this night, I hope that you get that you are not alone in maybe what you may be facing, or your family in crisis, or you're just here for info. You're not alone. And number two, people care. These people on this stage and this chief in our city here in Frisco, Chief Shilson, we care. They care about you. And those of you watching online, I want to welcome you as well. And thank you for being here. And so I'll let you take it away, Chief, but thank you, man, for inviting us to be a part of this, and we're grateful for all of you behind me for all that you do every day. It's a big deal, and we're grateful for all you do.
Thanks, John, and thank you to you and Hope for hosting us tonight. This means a lot, and Hope is such a great fit for this because you provide a reach to not just Frisco, but Prosper and McKinney and the whole region. So it really does mean a lot to us, and thank you very much for that. Just so everybody knows, tonight is really about creating awareness related to the fentanyl issue. And this is a national issue. This isn't just a Frisco issue. It's a national issue, and I'm sure that you've all seen stories, from other cities. You may even know someone here in this community. And tonight is really about creating awareness related to it. It's not designed, you're going to hear a lot of information. It's not designed to create any kind of panic. It's about awareness. And what we've put together is a panel of people that provides a wide variety of perspectives, what we're seeing, treatment options, testimonials, and then resources to prevent future poisonings, overdoses, to make sure that we get the death number to zero in our community. And that's what this is about tonight. And I know we have a lot of information to get through, so I'm not going to talk anymore, but I will say if you have questions, there is a QR code from the flyer that's been pushed out. You can submit questions and provide your contact information. We won't be able to get through all the questions tonight, but I encourage you, if you have questions as we go through the presentation, please submit them through that QR code. And then if you're here in person, we'll be taking live questions here from the audience. And so we want to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. But thank you to everyone for tuning in. And thank you all, everyone that's here to learn about this issue and hopefully have some resources to take away. So with that, I want to introduce our moderator. She really needs no introduction because Ann is such a great champion for our community, our city. She's been involved in so many things. I have a piece of paper that captures some of them. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them, but she served as the development chair for the Frisco expansion of City House, which is a transitional program serving homeless teens 18 to 21 years old. She is the co-founder of the Frisco Giving Tree, which is an organization that serves by giving to those in Frisco who are in crisis. She's received the Spirit of Frisco Award from the Frisco Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Spirit of Collaboration Award from the Junior League of Collin County. She's a breast cancer survivor and was honored to be on the host committee for the Ladies' Night Out, which is for a purpose to bring awareness and raise funds so that 100 uninsured women can get a free mammogram. In 2018, she was honored to receive the first Women of Hope Founders Award from the National Breast Cancer Foundation. In 2019, Ann co-founded Step Up Frisco to bring awareness to the Frisco community, to assist funding and expansion of the only 2 homeless programs in Collin County, the Samaritan Inn for Families and House for Kids. I think that sums up Anne and how much she has given to this community, and thank you so much for moderating.
Thank you. You sure there's no more on there, Chief? No, just kidding. I am honored to be here tonight to moderate this panel discussion on the effects of fentanyl. Thank you, Pastor McKenzie, you're out there, and Hope Fellowship for opening your church for this. And may I say, for always being willing to help this community with whatever need that happens. And I want to also acknowledge Chief Shilson and thank him for putting on this panel discussion and taking the lead. He, along with his officers, see firsthand the harm that this drug causes. Now let's meet our panel. We'll start with Mike Land, and we're going to go down that way. Mike Land has worked in the cancer industry for 28 years. Mike, who himself has struggled with addiction, lost his first son, Wesley, due to medical complications. And more recently, in 2021, lost his son, Preston, to fentanyl poisoning. He started a mission nationally, 25 Preston 7, a cause to pay homage to his son and to bring awareness to others about fentanyl. Next, we have Kathy O'Keefe. Kathy also lost her son, Brett, to accidental drug overdose. She is now the executive director of the nonprofit Winning the Fight, which she started to provide education resources and support for families dealing with substance use. Lieutenant Travis Sullivan has been a law enforcement officer for 15 years, 10 of which was in Frisco. Prior to his current role as watch commander, he worked in collaboration with Frisco ISD to help identify trends within the district and provide resources to combat the influx of the fentanyl-related incidents. Dr. Mark Gamber serves as EMS Medical Director and Local Health Authority for the cities of Frisco, Plano, and Murphy, Texas. You may recognize Dr. Gamber as our medical expert during the COVID pandemic during our Frisco town halls. Thank you for being here. Deputy Fire Chief Jake Owen, provides executive leadership over the Frisco Fire Department's EMS Division and Special Events Program. He has extensive experience in emergency medical services and has served Frisco for 25 years. Shannon White is a licensed chemical dependency counselor. In 2011, she started a treatment center, Grace to Change, serving the indigent population in Collin County. She has taught classes in the county jail since 2014 and has become an advocate for those suffering from the disease of addiction. Please welcome our esteemed guests. Each person on this panel possesses expertise gained from their different life endeavors. By bringing them together, we hope to provide better understanding and solutions to this growing crisis. This is the purpose for being here tonight. Sadly, 2 of our panelists were affected personally by this drug. Some of you here or listening online may have or known someone that has also had a loss in their lives as well. At this time, I would like to show a video and then have Mike Land begin.
My name is Michael Anthony Land. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm here today because of my son Preston Land, who died on January 5th of 2021 from acute fentanyl poisoning. Preston was a funny guy. Just a great kid. I mean, he could make anybody laugh. And that's what keeps me going sometimes, is just thinking about all the good times and the laughs that we have. You know, I still have his text messages to this day. Just a great relationship. You know, and then high school hit for a teenager and things kind of changed a little bit. He struggled a little bit with a few things, you know, some isolation, a little bit of depression, and tried to get him some help with that. He lived with me for a number of years, and then when I kind of started traveling a lot back and forth to Arizona, you know, that's when I got that call, you know, from my ex-wife saying, Preston's gone. And my first thing was, gone where? And she said, no, he's dead. Preston was not what society or what I looked at as an addict. And that's what upset me a lot, was people, their first thought were, well, I didn't know he was an addict. An addict is somebody that can't live without it. Preston was not that way. That night that he took that pill, I don't know what he was struggling with. If it was just a quick, you know, depression, you know, he wanted, whatever it was, he wanted that quick thing that, I just want to get out of this attitude right now. He got a bad pill. People think of drugs as the hardcore stuff that's illegal, the cocaine, the methamphetamine, the heroin on the streets and everything. If you go to a party, somebody says, hey, I've got this pill, don't worry about it. It's not anything hard drug or anything like that, but it's gonna kill you, or it's a really good chance of killing you if it's fentanyl. And so that's what's worrisome to me. First month or two after Preston passed away, of course, we didn't have an autopsy report. We didn't know. I think it was pending results of toxicology. When it came back as fentanyl, after I accepted that and worked through that, then I remember getting real mad. It's like, what am I gonna do about this? I was very lucky to have my church and the group that I'm with there that helped me through a lot of the anger and wanting to find blame with everybody. And I said, okay, I've got to do something to stop this. And I can't stop it legally, I can't stop it with politicians, but what can I do? I'm a parent. I can maybe talk to other parents and just make them aware of, here's what happened to my son, here's what I feel that I did wrong. Is it my fault? No, but you still wish you would have done something different. But there's a lot of stuff that, you know, with my troubles in the past and drinking and stuff, he might have mimicked me thinking it's okay. So it's a day-by-day thing, but I'm just taking that, you know, I still get angry sometimes, I still get sad, but I'm trying to turn this into something good and use his name for something good.
It's tough, buddy.
Mike Land is on a journey,
Doing this for you.
visiting 25 national parks for his son Preston.
Yeah, I miss him so much.
A years-long drug awareness campaign.
I don't want to see another parent deal with this.
25 parks for the 25 years Preston lived before dying of acute fentanyl poisoning.
There's a saying, one party, one pill, one time. That's all it takes.
The man-made opioid is 50 times more potent than heroin. Collin County Sheriff Jim Skinner helped start a special criminal interdiction unit, 18 deputies over 8 counties, focused on human and drug trafficking.
Sometimes we'll encounter cartel soldiers, hardcore. Other times we'll encounter someone who's paid just to drive a vehicle from point A to point B.
Over the last week and a half, the interdiction unit has seized 48,000 fentanyl pills on 2 stops. In one case, hidden inside a battery. One stop right here off Republic Drive and 75 in Plano.
It's been known for a long time. US 75 is one of the long-established trafficking routes, but also all the major interstates.
The sheriff says DFW has become a hub for the drug, brought here over the border, then repackaged for national distribution. The interdiction unit has seized more than 167,000 fentanyl-laced pills since 2018. In that time, fentanyl-related deaths have shot up 886% in the county.
We know that for every load of fentanyl that we stop on the highway and that we seize, we know we're saving lives.
And here we are in Mesa Verde National Park.
Mike Land is in Colorado. He's done 7 parks so far. At each one, he does a bike ride, hikes to the highest peak for a memorial for his son.
I think he'd be proud. And I'm gonna try and do this without getting teary-eyed, but you know, it's tough.
Sheriff Skinner says the department will continue to work with federal and state partners. They can't do this alone. Mike Land wants parents to know they're not alone either. In Collin County, I'm Jobin Puttiger.
Hey everybody, it's Mike. Well, it's final. I'm at the final 25th park for 25 Preston 7. It's kind of neat that today is 7:25 for the final memorial and the finished fentanyl awareness for 25 Preston 7. I'm here at Horseshoe Bend, the Glen Canyon National Park. Over the next year of doing this project for Preston, the success story for me, honestly, would be that a kid came home from a party and said, "Dad, Mom, you know what? Some people are passing around this pill, and I thought about what you told me, and that guy Preston or whatever. So I was scared. I didn't take it." That's a success story. So that's the legacy that I want him to bring, is that he will never be forgotten for that. I want his name to live on as that he helped somebody. You know, his passing helped another parent not have to go through what I went through.
Well, thank you everybody for having me, and thank you Chief Shilshin, wherever you went, and Hope and Ann for bringing us together. I usually start this off with numbers, and I try and make it a little personal. We've all seen the numbers that about 107,000 people die every year from drug overdose, and about 70% of those are fentanyl. But I want to make it hit home. In the 2 minutes, or in the 8 minutes that you just watched that video, 2 people have died, and at least one of those was a fentanyl overdose or a fentanyl poisoning. And since I'm here in Frisco, I like to bring up the fact that last year about 5,200 students walked across stage at Frisco ISD. That's 2 weeks worth of people that die every year. And I also want to make it a little more personal. I've got some friends here, Amanda and Andy Jackson. They are members of this church, and they lost their son 2 years ago on Christmas Eve, Blake, who is a member. Even Pastor John's daughter used to babysit. So it does hit home. It's in every community, it is everywhere. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it is everywhere. The other thing I want to talk about is, and I get to say this because I'm in a church, because I am a Christian, is that when I turned my life over to Christ about 7 years ago, I honestly thought that when I became a Christian, everything was going to be perfect. Didn't happen that way. After that happened, my son died. My son Preston died. And I was mad at the world. I really was mad. I was angry. I relapsed many, many times during that period. But at the final point is God had a purpose for me. And I had a gift for 2 children, and I got to have those children for a number of years, and it was a gift. So why am I even here on the stage now? What do I have to do? It's to actually help the other children out here so they don't have to be parents like us up here that have to deal with this. The one thing that has stood out to me with every parent that I have talked to, they all have one thing in common that I've noticed, and these are the non-addicts. Mental illness. What happened in 2020? We had COVID. We had depression, isolation, mental illness. And my son was on he was ADHD and he was on Vyvanse. And I think we live in a society now that even though that Vyvanse worked, we live in a society where a pill will fix everything. Even if it's just that moment, hey, I gotta stay up late that night and study. Does anybody have an Adderall? I got hurt in football. Anybody got a Percocet? Bam. It's not gonna help anything anymore. You will die at this point. 70% of these pills, and I was just telling Kathy, at the last DEA summit, 7 out of 10 pills that the DEA confiscates now are laced with fentanyl. The other thing that I would like to bring up is that it's not all bad all the time. I'm going to bring up some good news here in just a second. But I spent the first part of this week with the Department of Justice and the Attorney Generals, U.S. Attorney Generals. And what scares me is I think last year we had about 400 and something million lethal doses that came into the United States. And I've been to the border multiple times, and we know that's about 10% of what has come across. I would estimate right now there's about 4 billion lethal doses in the United States. That's enough to take out half the world. So that's what scares me. And the U.S. attorneys said they can't prosecute their way out of this. Our hope is you guys getting out there and the children just making awareness of this whole situation. And I know I've got a little timer counting down, but we're going to talk about Narcan. Jake Owen and Dr. Gamber is going to talk about Narcan. And I would actually like to invite up a friend of mine, Lyndall, if you want to come up. Lyndall is actually a survivor of Narcan, and he's going to give his quick little testimony about Narcan. And here he comes. So thank you guys for listening to me, and here's Lyndall.
Hey everybody. Everybody good? This is a little bit different venue than what I'm used to, sharing my story in this environment. I like to host charity events, and if it wasn't for this lady at the end, I would have been in prison a couple times. Thanks, Mike, for inviting me to be here. And I guess I'm not going to take a lot of time, but I do want to say that I was a regular suburban kid. I grew up in the suburbs, and South Garland, whenever South Garland was the McKinney of Dallas, back in the 80s. And at that time, culture in the early 80s was really starting to take an interesting shift with MTV. And a lot of the stuff that we started seeing as kids in the early 80s, like music went from the radio to video, and all of a sudden you're watching a lifestyle as opposed to hearing about a lifestyle. And so I grew up and went to high school like normal kids and just kind of bought into the culture of partying, right? Alcohol's attached to everything. It's in all our sports. It's at the movie theaters. It's in every single store. It's in the entertainment industry. Everything's rooted in alcohol. In America, we got alcohol. That's pretty much the motto. So I started partying like every other kid in high school and started with alcohol. And it started with alcohol, not weed. They say weed's the gateway drug. I'm going to say, no, it's not. Alcohol is, and it's the best marketed thing in this entire country. There's some heavily interesting things about culture that kind of shapes growing up in this country, and I bought into it. So started partying, and then drinking led to smoking some weed, and then that led to other stuff. And I say that because it's like Mike talked about. My son's not an addict. Don't need to know about Narcan or fentanyl or anything like that. Fentanyl's everywhere now. That's the thing. It's in everything. And so just an innocent experiment in high school, it's just killing kids at a totally different thing these days. Pills were a big thing when I was in high school, but it came from mom's cabinet. There was no fentanyl in there, but it's just such a common thing. So anyway, fast forward, continued partying, and it led to a lot of hardcore substance use, and got in a lot of legal trouble, and it led me down just this path of struggling with staying sober. And it started with just some innocent Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill, That's what it started with. know what I'm talking about. And then, I didn't even know fentanyl was a thing. I didn't even know pressed pills were a thing whenever it first kind of started coming out. And I was having some marriage issues. And my wife went out of town. And I called an old friend. I wasn't drinking or anything. I called an old friend and said, hey, man, I really need some Xanax. And he's like, yeah, I got them good ones. And that didn't even register, like, good one. You know, it didn't register. Xanax is Xanax. It comes from the pharmacy. What are you talking about, them good ones? So, you know, next thing I know, I mean, he coming over, bringing stuff, and I died in my living room. And thankfully, he had Narcan in his car and knew what the heck he was doing and administered it. And apparently, I started breathing. I vaguely remember paramedics surrounding me. And I came to in the hospital with all kinds of tubes coming out of me. And, it can happen that fast. So I think, you know, I just want to, I want to be able to share, like, from my perspective. It really starts with, you know, what kind of, I don't even know, man. This is such a heavy topic. I'm used to doing stand-up comedy and stuff, and like, hey, yay. But so I'm trying to just connect with you guys and let you know that this is a real issue that, you know, I think the more that we could just keep our kids involved in, like, good, happy, positive stuff and not buy into what's on TV or TikTok or whatever. I really don't know what else to say, but thank you guys for having me and allowing me the opportunity. And I just, and now I have a 17-month-old baby girl now, which is freaking awesome. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. And she's here. She's out in the lobby. She's the one wearing purple Converse. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, Mike, for sharing your story. And if anybody wants to watch his video again, I actually saw it today on YouTube. So it's 25 Preston 7, which was his mission. And thank you, Lyndall, for your testimony. And we're glad to see you doing so well. I bet you have a great stand-up comedy act. Don't hang him on. Kathy, can you come up now or from your chair and speak about the focus that you see as from the perspective of a mental health and drug education?
Thank you, Ann. First off, thank you, Hope. Everybody that's here online and in person, good for you. Good for you for getting that extra education, because we all need it, and I jump on everything I can. So 2010, March 20th of 2010, I'm coming up on 14 years, we lost our 18-year-old son, Brett, to an accidental drug overdose, mixed drug intoxication. Opiates were involved, as well as benzodiazepines. And we struggled with Brett. He struggled in school. He was extremely ADHD. And we didn't realize what we missed was the amount of anxiety that ADHD created in school. He never did well in school. He tried really hard. Every semester he'd be like, okay, I'm on it, and then it would fall off really quick. And so we kind of missed the anxiety part of that. And when we got into middle school, he started, you know, hanging out with friends, and all of a sudden alcohol was actually cigarettes were his first. And then alcohol kind of came around, and pot came around, and it all came really fast. And he found the substances that made the anxiety go away until he wasn't high again, and then the anxiety would come back. And we struggled with him. He had 3 overdoses. He died on his 3rd overdose. And we didn't really understand addiction at the time. We totally do now, and we did basically the last 6-8 months of his life. We understood the fight that he had to go through on a daily basis. And the odds of him being able to get into recovery at his age. He had just turned 18 years old. So once we got the call, I remember we were driving home from San Antonio, that's where we were. And we were driving home, and we were all kind of lost in our own thoughts, trying to get home safe. And I realized we had to do something. I knew that God was saying, you're doing something. I didn't know what that was, but it started right away. And so once we were able to breathe, we kind of brought people together, brought the community together, and the concept of winning the fight came up. And so we did this, and our main focus is education, because it's the only way we can get through this is to educate so that everybody is informed before they make a decision, especially our kids, because they have decisions that they have to make all the time. So now, as I going through this process, and I've got 14 years of experience with winning the fight. I had 4.5 years of experience with Brett, so I'm coming up on 20 years of drugs. That's kind of a long time. And I realized we see three things when it comes to substance use. We see mental illness. And literally, the majority of that is anxiety. Anxiety, depression, ADHD. Those are the things that we see the most of. And I tell kids all the time, if we know that our kids are anxious and things like that, we can work with that. We don't need to use a substance for that, because it works fine until the high's gone. And then once the high's gone, that anxiety exemplifies itself even worse. The second thing we see a lot of is trauma. And trauma could be anything from my parents got divorced, my parents made me move from California, I don't like Texas. It could be anything. A friend bullied, somebody bullied me in school. And so and you understand the trauma. People want to back out and just kind of feel normal. And by using a substance, it kind of makes them do that until the substance is gone again. We can work with trauma. There's so many wonderful treatments to work with trauma. The last thing we see a lot of is genetics. And my brother is an alcoholic. He ended up dying from his disease 6 months before our son Brett did. He's got 4 children, and all of them suffer with substance use. He's got a couple drinkers. They live in Illinois, so there's a couple pot smokers. But they all have that genetic makeup of my brother's addiction. And we can work with that. If we teach our kids, you have this in your background. If we can work with them and let them understand you don't want to touch a substance, nothing, until you're 21 or even older, or not at all, they'll live a much better life. So we just kind of, as we walk through this, and again, Ben and I, my husband and I, missed Brett's anxiety. And I really am sad about that, because it could have changed a lot of things for us. And we don't know. We don't know. We lost Brett regardless. So my job now is to make sure that we keep more people alive, and we focus in on some of the things that we are seeing in the place now. One of the things that, we talk a lot about being able to do things at home, and somebody actually said something recently about what can we as a normal person do to kind of at least do something towards this profound use of drugs around every community around. And one of those things is every single one of us has prescription as well as over-the-counter medications in our homes. Lock those up. And I have a lot of friends that are like, nobody comes into my house. Well, there's somebody coming into every house, whether you get somebody cleaning the house or whatever. And it's interesting, I had a 50th birthday party, and they were my friends. We had like 80 people, and they were acquaintances of me. And somebody thought a mirror was a medicine cabinet and kind of thought they could open it, probably looking for drugs, and the mirror kind of broke. And it made me realize it's not just our kids, it's friends. We don't know anybody's story, so we have to protect ourselves in our own home. So I highly suggest we started a program called Better Safe Than Sorry, and basically it's an educational program that is encouraging every family to get a small safe, depending on how much medication. I have friends that are insulin dependent. They need a larger safe. We don't need that in our house. But we have a safe that puts all our over-the-counter and prescription medications in that safe. So I don't have to worry who comes over and starts looking through my cabinets. And I remember Brett's friends would do that. I'd walk in the kitchen, and there'd be a cabinet open. It happened to be the cabinet with all the drugs in it, next to the sink where everybody has it. And I'm like, what are you looking for? Oh, just a glass for water. But they've already identified where that is. And when I go into schools all the time, I ask the kids straight up, how many parents lock up prescription over-the-counter medications? And it's very small. It's a very small amount of people. And this is a great place where you can make a difference. There's a video that I'd like to show you.
Life can be messy, and sometimes it's tough to keep up with everything. We want to create a safe environment for any guest that we invite into our home. When it comes to the disease of addiction, many people aren't informed enough on how to keep their friends and families safe. Last year, we lost 93,000 people to overdoses in the USA. Prescription medications make up a large portion of this. Locking up your medications can help prevent these tragedies and protect the ones that you love.
So I'm going to encourage you now, before I pass over this mic, please get a safe. You can get a safe for under $150 and lock up your prescription medications. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that. And again, her organization is winningthefight.org. And if you want to help Kathy and help save lives, that's a great place to donate or to volunteer. Lieutenant Sullivan, could you please now show us what trends you're seeing from a law enforcement angle?
Hello. First off, I again want to just reiterate, thank you for being here. I think education, as mentioned before, is the way we're going to win this. It's the way we're going to get information across to those who may make the choice of whether or not to take an unidentified pill. So fantastic on y'all being here, and for those that are going to be watching this from home as well. As mentioned before, I've been in law enforcement for about 15 years. I started my career in College Station. I worked the entire time there in our Northgate Entertainment District, which was just nothing but college kids and the kind of the party and lifestyle. So it's been very close to me throughout my career, just kind of watching those decisions that youth have made. Yes, there's definitely an enforcement component. I can't tell you how many arrests I've made related to substance abuse or having prescription pills that didn't belong to an individual, but I really don't remember any of those. What I do remember is being in the living rooms of homes where the worst thing has happened, where someone's lost a loved one, and that's what sticks with me. That's what will always stick with me, because the police come and you know, we do our investigation, and we notify the loved ones with the worst news that they're ever going to hear, and that resonates. So what can we do as law enforcement to help? And that's educate. I would much rather educate and prevent this than have some kind of enforcement action on it. So the last couple of years, I had the opportunity to be within our Frisco ISD as one of our SRO supervisors. We have a really strong school resource officer program. With that, we were able to identify trends that we were seeing within the school district related to fentanyl usage, both during the summer months and then as we got into the school year, maybe how the kids were using it, where they were using it, things such as, you know, moving from certain bathrooms to a nurse bathroom because they knew that a nurse would have Narcan, and just things like that, and pushing that information out, as well as having forums such as this with Frisco ISD and parents to continue to educate. So I do have a few slides here that I would like to show you related to what we've seen and what some of these items look like. So you can go ahead and move to the next one. So fentanyl, it is a synthetic opioid, and it's often, as mentioned earlier, it's often pressed into pills. So these pills are made to look just like prescription pills. Just looking at them, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So an individual may reach out to a friend or someone for a Percocet or a Xanax, and it's not. It's fentanyl. So that's the dangers of taking pills that are not prescribed to you and that you don't know where they came from. This is where too many youth have made fatal mistakes, is they think they're taking a prescription pill. It must be okay. It's FDA approved. I can take it. And that's just not the case. So as for Frisco, I can speak to Frisco. Yes, it is here. Yes, we have dealt with the aftermath of it. We had, in 2023, we had 18 overdose poisoning investigations. 11 of those survived, and we had 8 that passed away. 7 of those were fentanyl. So I had a parent that asked me to add this slide to this presentation because the communication with the youth can be different at times. A lot of times we see emojis and things. So these are some of the common emojis that are utilized in communications. Oftentimes fentanyl is called blues, Percocet, perks. They're using social media apps and just contacts that they know to gain these things. And then usage, it's anywhere that you could take a prescription pill, it's being used. I mean, to the point where we've seen, we worked one where they were trying to smoke fentanyl while driving and got in a wreck, and that was here in Frisco. So really anywhere and everywhere. When I mentioned smoking it, so this is a trend that we noticed, and I didn't even know about it until the year before last when I started seeing it in the schools, started seeing this burnt residue on foil. What they'll do is they'll prolong the usage of a pill and essentially burn it and smoke the vapors from it. And you would find these pieces of foil with just kind of burn marks along it. And then they also crush them up and snort them, and then just the most common way is just to take it orally. As mentioned before, we're seeing usually a little over 100,000 deaths related to synthetic opioids, the majority of which are fentanyl related. That's nationwide. As for Texas, we're seeing about 5 Texas deaths every day. Is that visible for y'all on those? So fentanyl poisoning is the #1 killer of individuals ages 18 to 45. I think used to we would hear, hey, let's make sure our kids aren't drinking and driving. We don't want them mixing alcohol and driving because that's the surefire way that we're going to lose a child. That is not the leading cause of death anymore with youth. It is fentanyl-related poisoning overdoses. Some of the display there on the end of that pencil was just a representation of how much of that substance it could take to kill you, a fatal dose for an adult. We had a couple more slides on there as well. So some of the growing trends we're seeing nationwide and here locally. So you're starting to see fentanyl-laced vape devices. You have kids that are swearing that they're only smoking a THC vape, but they're in their blood and stuff. They're coming back positive for fentanyl. Carfentanil, it's a tranquilizing agent. It's 100 times more potent. So just because you have something so dangerous as fentanyl doesn't mean that it prevents people from creating things that are even more lethal. And then xylazine is another one that's quite dangerous because not only is it more potent, but it also does not respond to Narcan, which is one of the few things that first responders and families can use to bring people out of these type of overdoses. A lot of people ask the why. Why would a drug dealer make a product that's going to kill their customer? Well, it's quite simply profits. You can buy a kilo of the powder online for a few $1,000s and turn it into hundreds of thousands of pills to profit millions of dollars. That's the why. It's all about profit. And then, as mentioned before, so in 2022, DEA seized more than 57 million fentanyl-laced pills, 13,700 pounds of fentanyl. Just for scale, that's 410 million lethal doses of fentanyl, and our population's 331 million. So that's, you could kill the whole country over with the amount of lethal fentanyl doses that were just seized, and that's just probably a tenth of what is actually there. So what is law enforcement? What is our state doing to try and combat it? Well, a lot of times laws get changed. In September of this past year, House Bill 6 went through, and it's basically a way for investigators and law enforcement agencies to charge individuals with murder who have sold a lethal dose to someone who dies from fentanyl. And that does carry a 15-year minimum sentence as well with that. So what can we do? As we mentioned earlier, educate, educate, educate. Educate your youth, educate your friends, even your elderly parents. I mean, fentanyl is a prescribed substance. So, we do see overdoses related to fentanyl patches and things. Just make sure that the knowledge is there of how serious this stuff is. Prepare. We're going to talk a little bit about Narcan here in a minute. Recognize the signs of this and have a plan, whether it's having Narcan on at the ready, knowing CPR, knowing to call emergency services. A lot of this stuff can reactivate even after Narcan, so it's still important to call these guys to come out and evaluate the individual. And when we come out, we are not there on a medical call. We are not there trying to make an arrest or take somebody to jail. We want them to get taken care of medically. That's foremost, 100% what our goal is. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, I'll be hanging out. All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Lieutenant Sullivan, for that information. And now we're going to have a dual presentation between Dr. Gamber and Deputy Chief Owen, because they're both involved in the emergency medical field. So could you please tell us what you see in the medical field and talk about Narcan, how to use it, and so forth?
Sure. Thank you for having us. And to my fellow panelists, thank you. I learned so much from listening to parents, and we've had the opportunity to present together a few times, and I always pick up many things from you too. I'm in your shoes. I'm a parent of 3 teenagers in Frisco schools right now. And I've had one graduate and go to college, but still have 2 kids in Frisco schools. And when this started to get on my radar a few years ago as a physician, I remember one of the first things I did was go home and talk to my kids about it, because I began to learn that one pill can kill, because I talked to our medics about what they saw, I talked to our police officers about what they saw, and I talked to my fellow physicians about what we saw in the emergency department, and that's what we hope to share with you tonight, is communicating with our teenagers. And the strength of this medication is what is incredibly dangerous. Okay, if you want to go ahead and put our slide up. And then you can go to the next slide. So I've been an emergency physician for 20 years, and we use fentanyl in the hospital. Well before this crisis, fentanyl it's a pain medication. When used in an appropriate dose, is very helpful to people. It's very helpful to control pain. If you've had a surgery, if you've had a broken bone, you may well have received IV fentanyl. So in appropriate hands, it's helpful, but the dose of fentanyl you would get if you broke your leg pales in comparison to these pills. The pills we're talking about here are 100, 200, 300 times stronger than the strongest dose I would give you in surgery. So I think that gives some perspective about how inappropriately strong these medications are. And there's, like you said, there's no FDA for these pills. There's nobody regulating this. These are made in a mixing pot in a field or in a bathroom somewhere. So you have no idea the strength within each pill. It's completely random. And I've had patients come in and one teenager lives and one dies, and they took the same amount. And all you can think is that one had a much stronger pill than the other one did. That was my first observation as emergency physician, was 2 patients, one lived and one died, and they had the same dose, and all I could think was they had no idea what they were taking, and we have no idea how strong they were. And clinically, I'll tell you, in the emergency department, our tests are very imperfect for this. It's a synthetic opioid. It will often show up negative on a urine drug screen in the emergency department. So don't necessarily believe in a negative drug test. It's a complex drug to test for. And we have some colleagues outside that can talk a little bit about testing too, but I'm just here to tell you on the front line, it's a very difficult drug to test for. So we can go to the next slide. As we saw in the other picture, it takes an incredibly small amount fentanyl to kill somebody. And it can be ingested in a number of ways. And so it can be smoked, it can be injected. I do want to say, though, as far as touching it on the skin, that's not my major concern. So I know that early on there were some videos out there that if you touched it, then you could immediately have a transdermal exposure and pass out, and that's not the case. You have to ingest it. However, I think it's important to note that it can be vaped as well as injected, so there's numerous routes in the body that we have to be careful of. You can go to the next slide. How does it work? We all have opioid receptors in our body, and so fentanyl is an opiate like morphine, like Dilaudid. There's oral opiates as well, hydrocodone, codeine. Again, used in appropriate hands for appropriate things like postoperative pain. These are very helpful. These have helped humankind get through painful experiences for many years now. We just have an incredibly inappropriately concentrated medication here with the sole goal of making addicts of us and making money off us. People are trying to kill us and make money off us with this drug when it's concentrated like this. You can go to the next slide. So the last thing I'll say is you can develop a tolerance to these medications as well when you're talking about opioids, but fentanyl is so incredibly strong that people who might have a tolerance to some pain pills and think, oh, well, I can take one of these pills because I have a little bit of tolerance. This is exponentially stronger, and you, again, have no idea how much is in the pill, so you have to be incredibly careful. So let's talk about the reversal agent.
All right. I actually have the pleasure of delivering some good news, that there's something everybody can do. When properly equipped, you can all save a life. Dr. Gamber talked about the receptors in our body for fentanyl, and those opioid receptors have an affinity for fentanyl, but the good news is that Narcan, the reversing agent, the receptors are much more highly attracted to the Narcan. So when both substances are present in the human body, the Narcan displaces the fentanyl or any other opioid from those receptors, thus reversing the effects of that drug, and in many cases instantaneously, within seconds. So it's a really powerful tool for us medically, but in recent years it's also become available over the counter, and that's really important in this battle against these overdoses. When seconds matter, when people aren't breathing, we often say time is tissue, where hearts and brains and organs are on the clock, and those that have the Narcan available can reverse the effects instantly if you're prepared. And so I want to talk a little bit about some facts about Narcan. The next slide is actually the packaging that comes with the over-the-counter Narcan. It's very easy to administer, and I know there's a lot of fine print, but I put that there to show you what you'll see on the packaging. When you get a package, my encouragement is open it and read it. There's step-by-step instructions. When someone is in a crisis, is not breathing, that's not the time to read the instructions. That said, it is as simple as taking Afrin. It is a nasal spray. It goes in one nostril, it absorbs into the nasal mucosa, into the bloodstream, and immediately begins displacing the narcotic from those opioid receptors. So you simply open up the package, just like in a CPR situation, you shake and shout, see if the person is responsive. One of the notes on there says, look at their pupils. A telltale sign for a narcotic opioid overdose is pinpoint pupils. So their pupils really get like the head of a ballpoint pen. My encouragement to you is don't worry about that. That you're going to be amped up. It's an absolute emergency, and it really doesn't matter. because the good news is Narcan does not hurt anybody. There are literally no side effects. We give it in the field. If you're unconscious and we don't know why, we give you Narcan. And in essence, using it as a diagnostic, because if it works, we now know it was some sort of opioid overdose. So my encouragement is, if you find someone unresponsive, use the Narcan. You simply administer it with the plunger. It's a forceful push one time in one nostril. Roll them on their side, because it's going to be a very fast acting and sometimes a 0 to 100 mile an hour reversal. So that person goes from completely unresponsive to waking up and ready to fight, sometimes vomiting, sometimes very confused. So be prepared for that. And then the final step is call 911, okay? We want this out there. We want people intervening. But just because it works does not mean you dodged the bullet, okay? Especially when it's ingested. With heroin, with the IV medication, sometimes one dose is a complete reversal, because that entire body of that substance is already being metabolized. With pills, it's gradually being absorbed just like any other food or nutrient in their stomach. And it may take several doses of Narcan to reverse that ingestion, and that needs to be done in a hospital under the care of a physician. So thank y'all so much. One more shout out, actually. We have here on site, we have, I believe, 2 tables have Narcan available. If you would like to take some home, my encouragement is to do so. LifePath is here. LifePath from Collin County provides mental health care and substance abuse services throughout Collin County. I spoke with them earlier. They said if you need Narcan, they will get you some. It's also readily available in retail pharmacies, and I pulled this screenshot. I was actually at a dance competition this weekend, and I guess yes, I was dancing. Playing on my phone, killing some time, and I guess all the preparation for this put me in the algorithms where I'm now receiving advertisements for Narcan. But I didn't know Amazon had it. 2 doses, $44. It's on your porch the next morning. So there's a lot of ways to get it. Very affordable, very effective, 0 harm. So please go out and get some.
Thank you both very much for that information. And now Shannon White from Grace to Change will talk about what are our treatment options available.
Hi there, my name is Shannon White, and by the grace of God and a whole lot of hard work, I've been sober from alcohol for 16 and a half years. Thank you. I say that to a church full of strangers because it makes me uniquely qualified to do the work that I do in Collin County and work with those who are still struggling. And I want everyone in this room to understand how hard it was for this ADD person to sit on this metal stool this entire time. So I apologize, I'm walking. So tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about the opportunities that we have in Collin County. How many of you realized if you did not have health insurance that you could afford to go to treatment in Collin County for free? Hey, both of you. So now all of you are about to learn that in Collin County, we have LifePath systems, just like he talked about. LifePath will treat you at whatever level you need, and they will pay for you to go to outpatient. We are outpatient providers. Myself, we do adolescents and adults. So next slide, if you would, please. So sadly, one of the things I didn't realize when I started a treatment center that so many of my donations were going to be in lieu of flowers, please send money. When people pass away, they start making donations, and I never thought we had to have a whole special place on our website. That is absolutely not why I got into this business. I got in this business to save lives. So the other person I have contact with is the morgue. So the doctor alluded to the fact that the hospitals aren't testing for fentanyl. It does not show up on a fentanyl test. So you can actually revive someone with Narcan, take them to the hospital, and they will have a clean drug test. which is really frightening because it emboldens whoever it was. See, didn't kill me. I lived. See, it wasn't that bad. So in Collin County, you can tell the numbers have gone up. I mean, they have consistently gone up. 2018, we had 4 fentanyl deaths. This is for all of Collin County. 2022, we had 67. In 2023, the numbers aren't 100% finished because there's some lag time in finishing them up, but we had 48 deaths from fentanyl overdoses. Part of the reason those numbers are going down, in my personal opinion, is not because there's less fentanyl around, it's because there's less people being tested. If you pass away in a hospital and you do not get an autopsy, it's exactly what he was talking about. 2 girls, both took the same dose. One tested negative at the hospital and survived. The other tested positive for fentanyl at the morgue. So the assumption is they both had the same dose. Next slide, if you would, please. 87% of opiate-related deaths in Collin County were fentanyl in 2023. Some of us in this room remember the heroin epidemic in Plano. That pales in comparison. And I always say, I do not mean to diminish the pain for the families that suffered in Plano. It was terrible and horrific. Kim, that works for me, buried how many classmates? 20? An amazing amount at her senior year in high school. This is so much worse. So much worse. You can pop up the next slide, please. Why do I say this over and over again? Hospitals are not testing. Our clients are Child Protective Services, probation. If a CPS client, if a mother goes into a hospital and overdoses on fentanyl, they leave the hospital and they have a clean drug test. Despite the fact that we know they overdosed, they were reversed on Narcan, CPS does not have the ability to take their children because they have a clean drug test. So at Grace to Change, we're actually testing for fentanyl now. So we can't do the test strips and see if there's fentanyl in the drugs ahead of time. But if you bring your kid to us, we can tell if there's fentanyl after the fact. Every fentanyl positive that we get in our drug test, we're testing for xylazine as well, because xylazine is around too. When we first started doing this, I think we had maybe 3 weeks of testing, and probably 98% of the people that thought they were taking fentanyl were taking fentanyl. So in Collin County, we have the ability, if you'll put the next slide, please. It's fun, I can see what's next. These are the different levels of treatment. Most people don't know this. So detox is the highest level. How many of you realize you could actually die from stopping drinking alcohol? It's the #1 killer. It's not drinking too much, it's stopping and going cold turkey. So alcohol is something that we need to detox from. It has to be medically supervised. Detox, heroin actually is miserably uncomfortable, but most of the time that's not gonna kill you. Xanax is another one that we have to detox. So we detox out of necessity, but we also detox because the withdrawals from fentanyl and heroin are so terrible that they can't tolerate it, so that's why the cycle continues. So when you put someone in detox, they're going to medically assist mitigate those symptoms. Inpatient, 30 days of inpatient. You get 3 hots and a cot, as they say. You get treatment, you get mental health help, you get groups, you get AA. County pays for that as well if you do not have insurance. PHP is partial hospitalization. That's about 5 to 8 hours a day, 20 hours a week of treatment, and in most cases, they allow people to do school in there. We are outpatient, and there's a lot of providers that are outpatient. So outpatient is anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, 3 times a week for intensive, and 2 times a week for supportive. Aftercare, I'm never gonna be a good business person. Ours is a nonprofit, but we provide free aftercare for life. So once you come to Grace to Change and you complete your program, you can come back to our group treatment anytime you want. This is a relapsing disease. It's a consistent lifelong disease, and so we want to be the support. We've been in the same location for 12 years. Why is it so important that we talk about treatment? because people don't have to suffer. The assumption is there are some treatment centers that you send that cost $30,000 to $35,000 for someone to go to treatment. Most of us don't have that. But if you live in Collin County, we can get you in detox, we can get you in inpatient, we can't do PHP, but we can do outpatient. All of those are accessible to anyone who wants treatment. Another reason I'm not gonna be ever a very good business person, if someone you know needs outpatient treatment, get them to my door and they will get it. We write grants. City of Frisco has actually blessed us with $30,000 from their opiate funding so we can actually help treat people, adolescent or adult. What I want people to understand is there's hope for this. This is a terrible thing. We are burying people all the time. That is a fact. People are being arrested for it. It is in cocaine. We had a wonderful man come in and test for cocaine, and I bet he weighed 300 pounds, and he said, I feel weird, my skin feels different, smells different, my pee smells different. He tested positive for fentanyl in his cocaine, and Kim was drug testing him, he just fell to the ground. He was devastated, had no idea. There's a young woman in McKinney who was arrested for a dab pen in school, which some of you know, that's the marijuana vape pens. That is a felony. Once they tested it, it tested positive for fentanyl. She got a possession of a dangerous drug. She had no idea it was in there. Had she gone into the bathroom, which I know they don't do in Frisco, but if they go into the bathroom and share a vape pen and somebody had gotten that and died, she would have been charged with murder. So people say it's not in my marijuana, it's not in my Xanax. It's in every one of those things. Nothing is safe. My firm belief is we start talking to children 3, 4, 5 years old. Don't take medication that your parents don't give you. There is never too young to do this. I taught kindergarten, and I would love to go back and have this conversation with 5-year-olds. Because if we start talking about it early, medication is medication, then we're not gonna have so many of these people, like Mike said, just looking for a pill to fix something. So we'll be in the back. We've got flyers. We've got Narcan. Nobody should leave here without Narcan. If you have a business, a church, someplace that you want to do it, we've got nice little holders that you can take with you and put them, we suggest you put them by the AEDs in whatever facility they have. So thanks for being here.
Before we start questions from the audience or for online, I first want to thank the panelists for being here. The hard work and dedication that you all do to save lives does not go unnoticed, and and know that we appreciate that. And it's my hope that by having this panel discussion tonight, that lives will be saved somewhere. Thank you. Chief?
So we're going to open it up to questions. If anybody has questions here in the audience that they want to ask, please feel free to make your way up front. We'll get you a microphone and make sure that you have an opportunity to ask the panel question. I'm going to start with one of the questions we got online, and I know, Shannon, you just touched on some of this related to treatment. But, you know, we have people in both Collin and Denton County here in Frisco. And the question was, where can we take a family member struggling with addiction and needs treatment immediately?
So the best place you can take them is to the emergency room. The emergency room is going to see them right away. And I feel terrible saying this because I know I send people to the emergency room and they may or may not have insurance. But when it's life or death, the first place you take them is to the emergency room. They have social workers, caseworkers who will help you get to the appropriate facility after they've stabilized you.
Perfect. Anybody in the audience have questions? You want to make your way up here?
Come on down.
So can you go over what we're looking for in our kids as far as symptoms go before the overdose, that maybe our kids are taking fentanyl recreationally? What kind of symptoms as a parent are we looking for in them to identify that this might be a problem that we need to pursue further?
It's a great question. It was one of the online questions too, so great minds must think alike. So warning signs for parents that they might look out for. I know, Lieutenant Sullivan, you mentioned the emoji stuff, the communication on phones. I can't stress that enough. I mean, parents, you pay the phone bill. That's your device. Don't feel like you're not entitled to go through it. If you have a hunch something's wrong, looking into the phone can enlighten you on a lot of things. Any other warning signs that?
Was it just warning signs on the phone? I didn't hear the.
It was warning signs from a parent's perspective, things they need to be looking for from their kids that might tip them off to an issue coming.
I would say the biggest thing that I noticed, especially with my son, and I was kind of awkward with it, was he was always in kind of a depressed mood, and then all of a sudden he's in a good mood, and I'm like, oh, finally he's in a good mood. The question is, why is he in a good mood? So now I look back, and it was because he was probably taking something on the side. So any mood changes, like I said, he was on Vyvanse, but he didn't take it all the time, so I guess just any mood changes at all. I mean, we know our children, but just any direct mood changes. It doesn't have to be anything drastic, but just why is he happy one day, sad the next day? Was one of the biggest things that I saw.
And from a medical perspective, any kind of physical warning signs that parents might see?
After the ingestion, whether it's fentanyl or another opioid, it could be a prescription pill or something like that, you're going to see slow mental status, right? Things are moving slower. They might have slurred speech, some cognitive delay. If they've really had a significant overdose, you're gonna find a child who's not waking up. Opiates kill you because they make you quit breathing. So as your breathing slows down, your oxygen levels drop, which eventually leads to your heart stopping. So there are certain, if it's injected, there are certain injection sites you can look for. But I would look for slow mental status, slow respiratory pattern if they've had an acute ingestion. And I just want to echo what you've said too, which is you can't hurt anybody with Narcan. It's either going to do nothing or it's going to make them better if you have that around. So in quick order, if you find somebody who you're worried has overdosed, call us. This is what we're here for. This is why you have 911. We'll come out and make an assessment. And if you have Narcan with somebody who you think has symptoms like pinpoint pupils and respiratory depression, give the Narcan, okay?
Can I add to that real quick? We are parents, and this is not a game. So if you have a child in the home, especially middle schoolish and up, go through their bedroom. It's your house, go through their bedroom. You're looking for aluminum foil, you're looking for lighters, you're looking for other things. If they are driving, go through the car, because they keep everything in their cars. But that's a good place to kind of start looking for something that might be there.
Two other random symptoms we've found is people ingest and they vomit. So if you hear your kid in the bathroom and they take it, they immediately vomit, and then sometimes on themselves, sometimes in the toilet, and that's a sign. The other one that we've noticed that's super weird is right on the bridge of their nose, when they sleep, they rub it raw. So we have people walk in and we're like, oh, you got fentanyl because you got that spot. So they're weird signs.
If I don't get a chance to thank you individually, I want to thank you now, because I may not get a chance to see each one of you. This touches me personally. We lost our son at 18, high schooler, and Prosper. My question is, well, first of all, my observation after having lost him and trying to make an impact on others who we don't want to have that happen, is that our testimony speaks loudest. Our real stories speak loudest. You spoke to this group. I think you have a lot bigger audience, and I think that it would be great if you could take this to schools, because I think the kids would listen to you. Because you speak from your heart, you speak from everyday experience. My question is there a means of doing so? Let's make it prosper. For example, you're in Frisco. Is there a partnership that you could form, or that you have, in order to get into these schools and have a presentation of this nature in a school?
Yeah, so I'll kind of jump in on that one. We have partnered with FISD. We did a very similar panel to this that Grace to Change was a part of, the fire department was a part of, I think last year, related to fentanyl. So we've partnered with them for this type of thing. Tonight we are recording, Hope is recording this presentation. We intend on using this discussion as a resource as we continue this conversation, because it has to continue, right? That's the purpose of this, is to continue to educate. So this will continue to be a resource for us. We do have a great partnership with the school district, and we will certainly make sure that they have this available to them as a resource.
Just on that, just a little bit. So we do a program called Shattered Dreams each year. A lot of it's geared towards alcohol-related choices that students are making and how that can just completely tear apart their lives. We did have one student that wrote back after we did this previous one that said she made a decision not to get in the vehicle with some friends or acquaintances that were offering to take her home, and they ended up getting in a wrong way, head-on collision with someone on the way home. And she wrote back and just, thanked the information that was provided that night. So we don't always get those success stories. We don't always know when we've made a decision that has saved our own life. Maybe that pill was a prescription pill, but so if we don't take it, we never know, kind of thing. The schools, we pushed this fentanyl information with Frisco ISD. They were very receptive to it. We were able to get Narcan in all the nurses' offices proactively before it really started hitting, and we used that on, I believe, 4 occasions the year before last. This year, thankfully, we haven't had to use it at all. And then we also encouraged them to show a video to, I believe it was juniors and seniors, and it's called Dead on Arrival. It's a pretty powerful video as well. And I believe just pushing that information to the students during advisory, because I can count on 2 hands probably how many students are in this room right now. There's probably very few that'll watch it online. It just is what it is. But when you have a captive audience at school, and we can show it to the students in mass, whether it's during our Shattered Dreams program or during advisory, that's when we can really get that information out there. And I would like to think we've seen results in Frisco ISD. Now, school district to school district, it's going to be up to the superintendents on what time they allow for those type of purposes.
If I could touch on one more thing, there's a group, and I can't see Lisa and them out there, but it's Texans Against Fentanyl. And I think it was last May, there was a law passed, Tucker's Law, that basically said that all high school or schools from 6th grade to 12th grade have to be educated. And they're working tough to get into the schools. We've been into Plano. I just did all 3 middle schools in Allen this week. And I've got the Department of Justice and the Attorney Generals that are saying, if they don't want us in here, I'll force them to get us in there. So we're doing that. We're going to do the high school next week. Kathy, I don't know how she sneaks in, but she does it very well. So, but we're trying to get to every school. So,
good. Chief, I've got like 3 or 4 or 5 that are ready. So you just cut me off, and y'all can answer questions at the end. Is that right? You're going to be available. Okay, here we go.
So I wanted to say thank you as well. We lost our son in September, and one thing that, along with what you said, you were so mad afterwards, is as many times as he went to the hospital, once for overdose, a couple times to detox, he went to a detox center, they never tested for fentanyl. Why? And for all the random drug tests they do at schools for the UIL kids, why is fentanyl not, on that as well, because that's how we first found out about THC. But, a year or so before he actually passed, but it wasn't until a month before he died that we actually found out through a PHP that tested him. So is there something we can do? I mean, I just so much want hospitals or schools, if they tested for fentanyl and it was caught early, I just wonder what we could have done if we would have known 2 years before, So I don't know if anyone has an answer, but that's just kind of my question.
Do you want to talk about how you test for it, and then I'll follow up with how poorly we test for it?
We're awesome. No, we have a urine test. It's a 15-panel urine test, and it does specifically test for fentanyl. We do drug testing in our office. It's $30, and the reason we charge $30 is we usually give them a hard time and do some counseling with it to figure out what drug is in their system. You can buy them. People get if you put in fentanyl testing, it's going to take you to drug test strips on Amazon, and they're going to say you can't buy them in Texas. You absolutely can buy fentanyl urine testing. If you need to buy them from us, we sell them at our office, or you can bring your child in to us.
Our urine drug screen is not that good. That's sort of the bottom line, and I'm saying this for the major healthcare systems. If you come into the emergency department, we have a less specific urine drug screen that's just yes or no for opiates, but it really only tends to pick up morphine derivatives. When it gets into synthetics like fentanyl, it tends to swing and miss on those. So, if there was ever somebody that was given Narcan and woke up and they're brought in, I would never want a parent, if their child got Narcan at school or in any environment, to say, okay, I know you're embarrassed, let's not go to the ER. Bring them to the ER anyway, because we need to have a life intervention about what's going on and have a conversation about what's going on. But it's true, the testing that we have is not sensitive and specific for fentanyl. I'll have to find out if we can even test. And this is, I work at an over 500 bed hospital. I'm not even sure if we can test for fentanyl via a blood test. A challenge that can come up sometimes too is you actually have to have the body fluid, urine or blood, to be able to do it. People don't want to hand that over sometimes. So it's a challenge of having the ability to test too.
We got time for one more question, and I've got one online question, so we'll finish up there.
All right, kids love to vape, and there's a vape store on just about every corner in Frisco. My question is more, what percentage is unintentional? I mean, I understand you're a kid, you're at a party, you get a pill, you take the pill. You kind of know what you're getting in, you don't know what you're getting into. A vape is, to me, a little different story. You tell me if it's not. But what percentage are unintentional, and how is that fentanyl getting into a vape? I mean, it's not at the vape store. They're not selling fentanyl-laced vapes up at the Czar. Where are those coming from, and how are they getting to our kids?
It's the marijuana vapes. So a tobacco vape that you buy at the smoke shop is not going to have it. It's when you go to a dealer that is manufacturing their own that they lace it with fentanyl. So not all of them are done. And I know the police are here, but a lot of times in the vape stores, they are actually selling marijuana pens if you know how to ask the right question.
Yeah, and you got to also be aware. I mean, I've been to a lot of training recently, so they're not going to be able to market those, obviously, because they're not anything that's approved that they can push out. But there are so many synthetic compounds that are out there. We got one question about a compound that I'd never even heard of before. So I did some digging on it, and it's something they came up with in the 50s when they were doing all the research on opioids, and it just sat in a cellar somewhere because the medical field didn't pick it up, and someone decided to, dust it off and recreate it, and it started popping up on the scene during the COVID pandemic, and it's not receptive to Narcan. Convenience stores, vape shops, they have all different types of products. All these products are synthetic. A lot of them have different compounds in them. And the way to stay away from law enforcement's eyes is to come up with something new, because it's not in the books yet. So these things that are being sold, they're every bit as dangerous. A lot of them are as what you would classify as hard drugs. They just haven't popped on our radar yet. They're just a synthetic compound that is going to cause the same type of reaction with an individual or worse, but they're not illegal because we can't find them in our book. And that's frustrating, but that's unfortunately where we're at with it.
I'm going to jump in here real quick. We have a lot of drug dealers that are selling vapes as well, and if a store is $30 and he's selling them for $15, your kid's probably going to go to that $15 because they're so expensive. And that's, a lot of people may not understand what they're getting, but that's a way that they're also getting things that they don't know they have.
Yeah, and to your point about what percentage is accidental versus, and it's why we use the term poisoning and overdose interchangeably, because it's next to impossible to really know. So, last question from the online audience is really, what can I do to help? We got a lot of people watching out there online. We got people here in the audience. What is the call to action for people that are tuning in, what can they do to help?
Talk, test, train.
Have Narcan, have it available. Dr. Gammer and I were talking that it's so readily available and so easy to use. Anyone with kids in their home between like ages 8 and 38 should have some around, and it's no different than having allergy medicine, or if your kid has severe allergic reactions, you have EpiPens. It's a rescue device, and it's something that everybody should have. So.
Just have the courage to talk about it. We're all leaders. So if you're in a church group, you're a Boy Scout, a Girl Scout leader, you coach a basketball team, take your 5 or 10 kids and have the courage to talk about it. And it's a pretty simple message. One pill can kill. You can't take a pill from anybody but your parents. And you have to understand, where it came from. So have that conversation that the game has totally changed. When we grew up, you could potentially take a pill from somebody at a party and it wasn't going to kill you, and it will now.
Yeah, I'll second the Narcan and education. Narcan, again, should be in everyone's home. Honestly, I would put it in my kids' backpack as well. I'd put it in their car and educate them on what it is and how to use it, because odds are they're going to be the ones that come across the need to use it, maybe with one of their friends, especially if you've educated them not to take the pill, but maybe one of their friends does. They can run out to their car and grab Narcan and bring them back. And then watch signs. A lot of the kids that I ran into, Frisco ISD, that we started to see going down that road, there were signs. Maybe they dropped out of a sport that they loved. Maybe they closed the door to certain friends that you would view as maybe positive influences, and they started going a different way. Take note of those things. Those are just little clues, little breadcrumbs along the way. But take note of those and watch. Pay attention to those signs and have those difficult conversations.
We kind of talk about education, but a lot of parents don't have this conversation because they don't know about it. How do you teach your son about methamphetamine if you don't know anything about it? So my suggestion is go to these panel discussions so that you gain information, learn about what's happening outside, and then you can have that conversation with your child. If you don't know it, bring somebody in that can educate them.
I guess the last thing I would leave it with is don't be in denial that most parents, for the first year that I went out talking, every parent that walked up to me said the same thing: thank God my kid's not a drug addict. Everybody that I know that has passed away, family members, we all find our child down the hall, upstairs in their room, dead. They're not out on the streets. They're not the drug addicts. These are the first-time users. So don't be in denial, and just make it aware to everybody that fentanyl is out there and it doesn't pick and choose. And the sad thing is, the higher you are addicted to it, your tolerance is way up there. For the ones that aren't, it's down there. So just bring awareness, please.
And I believe if you test kids before, don't wait till you think they're using. Test them before, because it gives them a reason to tell their friends, I can't do this. My mom is psycho. She's going to test me when I get home. And believe me, they need something like that to get it. It helps as a deterrent. So.
Well, I want to close by just letting everybody here in the audience know, and then everybody online. We have some tables set up from all these organizations in the back, and if you're tuning in online, certainly you can search these organizations and reach out to them. But the organizations represented here tonight: Hope Fellowship, Regeneration for Adults and Teens. We have a Frisco PD table out there ready to answer whatever questions you might have. Grace to Change is here. Winning the Fight is here. Life Path is here. Texans Against Fentanyl is here. And also Angel Moms. And as was mentioned, there is free Narcan available, so I encourage you to take some with you so you have it in your home. But I just want to say thanks again to the panel for taking your time to be here tonight. A lot of great information. Y'all think they did a good job? I think we've provided really good awareness, some really good resources, but I think really the big takeaway is that there's hope out there. You know, we heard some incredible testimonials, not just from the people here on the stage, but members of the audience and how they've been impacted by fentanyl. And I think it's just so critically important to continue this conversation. Know that there are resources and treatment options out there. There's Narcan available to save lives. And I think that's the hope that we all need to hang on to and carry forward and continue to educate and continue the conversation. Pastor John, you want to close
absolutely.
this out?
Ann, thank you. Thank you for a great job hosting and mediating and doing your deal. So can I just pray for us? Lord, so grateful for, first of all, your grace and your peace, that in the midst of trouble, in the midst of loss and pain and hurt, you are close to the brokenhearted. And I pray that for anyone in the room that may be in that situation, in that season, in that circumstance in their life, I pray that your peace that passes understanding would be with them, that your grace, your comfort. Lord, we also thank you for the people that are giving their lives to save lives. Those behind me on this stage and some out there in the audience that are every single day doing the hard work of trying to train, educate, test, and make sure that not one more person dies. And I thank you for them. We're grateful for their energy, their time, their passion. God, I pray that you'd bless them. In the remarkable percentage of bad news that we all get every day, they live it every single day. I pray for encouragement. I pray that you would be with them and protect them as well as they try to protect others. Grateful for Chief Shilson and our first responders that are on the front lines, trying to save lives, trying to help us, trying to protect our communities. Lord, we bless them as well. So Lord, all of us in this room, I pray that we would walk out of here with something. And maybe our kids, maybe it's our grandkids that we'd have a conversation with. Lord, we thank you for your love and your grace. May your kingdom come, and may your will be done in our hearts, in our lives, in our city as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, everyone.